to the Meadows and Makers podcast with Making Stuff and Jacked Up. Making Stuff and Jacked Up.
Thomas.
Making Stuff and Jacked Up.
Jacked Up and Making Stuff. Peace.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another week of the Meadows and Makers podcast here on the MSP Waves. And today I have a cool guest with me. It's my buddy AJ, and we are live from an undisclosed location. And we're gonna get into some of the stuff that he does, and he is in his profession a little bit, and just try to give you guys something a little different today. Today I'm going to be doing some video, so if you want to see the video, you'll need to either sign in to mspwaves.com and watch the stream live from there. And what I like to tell people they can do is, you just silence. You can either silence yourself on Discord here, and then go watch yourself on the go watch the stream on MSP Waves. Yeah, there we go. And you can see I got the beard rule number 3. And there's a name for people that don't have beards, and it's women on my t-shirt. So thank you guys for hanging out today. Just some disclaimers up front here for the show. I need to say that the views and opinions that are expressed on this show are my own and those of my guests, and they do not reflect on MSP Waves. So if you have some complaints or feedback, please send those my way. And don't harass those guys. So check it out. My tech trail says he's not getting it on. He's not getting anything on Vim, so okay. MSPwaves.com, might be better on there. But so this is a show all about kind of personal resiliency, and I try to show and give you some things for makers and homesteaders, people that are doing different things. So this show is for education and entertainment purposes only, and so come along for the ride and just try to be an inspiration and show some inspirational content with you guys. And that's the show motto. that I've come up with is that, and something that I think that we can all kind of unite with is being doers and makers, growing our own good food and, living more in a peaceful situation. And we can kind of unite around these things because it's something universal in humanity, I believe, is that we all want to live a good life and good, eat good food, have a peaceful place to live and move towards a brighter future in that respect, that we can kind of unite around these things. So with that being said, the motto for the show that I like to carry forward is, I will be an inextinguishable light of possibilities for myself and others. So that's something that a mantra I'd like to spread and kind of hold it, everybody to kind of hold in their heart and to try to work to connect the heart and the brain a little bit better. So thank you for being here. And without further ado, this is my buddy AJ. How's it going, AJ?
Good. Excited to get started.
Awesome, man. So we got to do a cheers here. We're both hanging out, and we're sampling a little bit of this rye whiskey he's got here. Usually what we do is we cheers for people leveling up on the show. So if you're in the chat room and you're typing away and you get a level up that comes up, then we'll do a cheers to you. But Rondon just put up a link to the backup stream on Twitch is working. So if you follow his link right there, then you should be able to see that video. So Swoop, I see you just joined. Thanks for joining, sir. Thanks everybody for being here this morning. Global Cop, My Tech Trail, Rondon, Soundwaves, Photon. Guys, thanks for hanging out so far. So AJ, man, so tell the audience what you're all about. You're maybe a little bit about your background and what you do.
Sure. My background is in prosthetics and orthotics. I went and got my master's in prosthetics and orthotics, and I guess prosthetics is making replacement limbs, and orthotics is bracing limbs. So the difference is bracing versus replacing, I guess you could say.
Okay, so when I think orthotics, I'm thinking is it only related to like your skeletal structure or something like that?
It could be skeletal, it could be muscular. It's really dependent on your diagnosis, I guess you could say.
Okay. All right. So AJ says you're really quiet, so maybe if you can move up a little bit more to the microphone, and then project your voice like the German that you are.
So prosthetics is replacing of a limb that is missing, and orthotics is bracing of a limb that either has a muscular or structural imbalance or weakness.
Okay.
And we can brace pretty much head to toe. A lot of times people think of orthotics as just something that goes inside your shoe, but it can be anything from an ankle brace or an ankle stabilizer, hip, torso, all the way up to a helmet that helps reshape a baby's head.
Okay. Well, what got you into wanting to do this as a profession? Like, what was your inspiration for wanting to go down that road?
Sure. I really wanted to work with my hands. I had my undergrad in pre-med and really didn't want to go all the way through med school. So I started working I started shadowing in prosthetics and orthotics, and decided that's the route I wanted to go.
Okay, so you were a med student there, and you wanted to do maybe something in kind of like internal medicine or something like that, but then you decided that you wanted to shift over to this study.
I guess the study that I really liked in my undergrad was biomechanics and the way the body moved, the structure, the human gait, how people walk, how people move, and really the troubles some people have with certain diagnoses, whether they be spina bifida, muscular dystrophy, any type of paralysis from a traumatic brain injury or a stroke, It's a very rewarding career to help somebody get back up on their feet again.
Yeah. So what kind of people? Could you talk a little bit about like who all comes to you? I guess like are they mostly they're people from all kinds of ailments, right? Like from even people may have lost their limbs from diabetes to accidents to things like that.
Correct. So for prosthetics, the number one taker of limbs is not war. It's not traumatic accidents. It's poor circulation, diabetes. It's really by far, if you're an unhealthy person with poor circulation, diabetes leads to poor circulation, and a compromised circulatory system. The healing of a foot sore or a foot wound is very compromised, and it doesn't heal. Instead, it gets infected. And once that infection starts to spread, the only way they can save that person is to amputate their limb.
So those are a lot of the cases that you see, or a lot of people that may have diabetes and stuff.
Correct. For amputations, yes.
Okay.
Now I do work a lot with, maybe veterans that come back, but that is not the number one that we see across the United States.
Okay. Cool. So, how do you guys use all kinds of different materials and different processes for how you make your prosthetics? And could you talk about how's the technology changed now? Have you seen the technology really rapidly change right now, or are you guys still using a lot of maybe older prosthetic techniques to build these things?
That's it's kind of a mix. 3D printing is going to be part of the future, but right now it's not even close to what it needs to be to really be part of this field. You see all these 3D printed arms and upper prostheses that people say they printed for $15. Well, what they don't tell you is that they break within 12 hours of use. They really aren't practical. They're big, they're bulky, they don't look like a real arm, and they don't function except maybe if someone has got a wrist and they can bend their wrist down, then the fingers may close. And that's just kind of like the rubber band pulley system that they design with these 3D printed arms, which how practical is that? Upper extremities are very hard to get somebody to use because a lot of times if someone's missing a hand, they've got another hand to use.
Okay, so yeah, speaking of that, we have some photos here that we downloaded from what you do before the show here, so we can kind of give an example to the audience of the kind of work that you do. So this is a gentleman's hand, and
that's a socket.
And then you have the next part here. So what's the socket? Can you explain that a little bit?
So the socket is what the person wears. That's pretty much the in-between. So he's missing his third, fourth, and fifth finger due to a traumatic accident. So we have to design a socket, and then we attach fingers to it. These fingers are myoelectrically controlled. So
wait, that was a $5 word right there. So what does myoelectric mean? What does that mean?
Myo, muscle, and electric would be your signal that your muscle throws out. And so this isn't his hand here, but These are pictures of another person's fingers. They're missing their second, third, and fourth, and they've got their pinky. This is just kind of showing what there is out there for possibilities. So if we can go to the next one, can you upload one more picture?
Yeah. Yeah, so which one do you want to show?
This one right there.
Okay. All right.
So this is an example of a full hand. Maybe someone's missing all 5 of their digits, but they've got the majority of their hand left. There are the 2 battery packs on the side, and there are also sensors that we place where we've got muscle activity. that once those muscles fire, the sensor picks up that signal and it tells that hand to either open, close, switch to a pointer finger grip, maybe switch grips altogether, click a mouse to grasp something. And the intensity of that muscle contraction signal determines how tight or how fast or how much pressure that hand does. So it's pretty cool technology, and there's some even better technology out there right now.
So how exactly does that work? Is it how do they train themselves to use that? They just have to, it's unique to every person probably. They think about closing their hand in a certain way, and then the thing just starts to respond to that, I guess.
Kind of. I mean, we work hand in hand with a lot of physical therapists and occupational therapists, depending on whether it is a upper extremity or a lower extremity injury. If it's a lower extremity injury, we work with physical therapists. If it's a upper extremity injury like this hand, we work with occupational therapists. And we really do take a team approach, working with the patient and the therapist to determine, the best therapeutical training that they're going to need to get the best outcomes. And everything is based on outcome measures. Okay.
So Soundwaves Photon says he wants robot hands. How far away are we to becoming cyborgs?
So there's a couple companies out there right now that are funded actually by the Department of Defense that are doing hands and they're working on you think it and your hands will do it, and it's all neuromuscular mapping. It's some pretty cool technology. I don't know if we'll ever see it in our lifetime paid for by insurances, but a work comp injury or a soldier coming back, they get the cool stuff. Insurances don't cover the really cool stuff though.
So, okay, when you say cool stuff out there, what's some examples? Do you have any examples of? I know there's like the knee that's like mechanized or something like that, and
sure, and
some things that you've seen like that.
So there are knees out there that have got more torque than a Harley Davidson Sportster motorcycle.
Wow.
So if someone's down and they're missing their leg above the knee and they need a prosthetic knee, they actually have knees that are powered. Now, everything comes with pros and cons. Obviously, if you're going to have a powered knee that helps you stand up from off the ground or it propels you up a stairs, it's going to be heavy. And if you have a knee that's got as much torque or actually more torque than a Harley Davidson motorcycle, you are looking at a pretty heavy device. Now, the challenge is yeah, sure, it's super cool and people do fantastic with it, but now you've got to suspend that off of somebody's limb.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy. I mean, every step they take, that weight is going to be pulling off of their residual limb. So you've got other challenges that come with it. Like I said, everything has got its pro and everything has got its con in this field. But it's it's pretty sweet. No, we can't jump over buildings with those yet.
But it's going. It may go in that direction then, huh?
I mean, yes, technology is making leaps and bounds, and most of it is funded by the Department of Defense, and it's pretty cool. They've got foot ankles that communicate with the knee so that when certain protocols are met, the foot or the knee knows that you're maybe going up a hill or down a hill, and everything adjusts.
Wow.
And most of them are pretty much hydraulically controlled, computerized knees, the higher dollar ones.
Yeah, they can put out the most force.
Well, and there's only actually one power knee out there right now, and it's called the power knee. But the other ones are hydraulically controlled with microprocessors in it that once certain parameters are reached, it knows to, hey, let's slow this down, this knee flexion or this knee extension down because they're going up or down a hill. Because if you think as you're going down a hill, that knee better slow you down, otherwise it's going to let loose. If you're walking on a door hinge or something, it's going to let loose, and you've got to try to control that going down a hill.
Yeah.
So instead, it returns you to a more normalized gait and more normalized walking.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
More like your actual limb.
Mm-hmm. Correct. It mimics more of the human walking.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about what kind of materials are you guys using in this stuff now? Are you using a lot of composites and things, plastics and composites, I guess?
Sure. So for the sockets itself, we use a lot of carbon graphite and acrylic resins. And we also use maybe some nylon fiberglass, some Niglass as well.
Why do they use that? Is it because it's not interactive with your skin or your body, I guess?
We use fiberglass because of its, fiberglass and carbon fiber because of its lightweight, rigid structure.
Okay.
I mean, the more weight you've got suspending off of somebody's limb, the harder it is to keep it on.
Yeah.
So we try to go with as light of weight as possible for someone's prosthetic limb.
Okay. Now,
if we're doing braces, we focus more on thermoplastics, copolymers. It's really, we try to focus more on thermoplastics. We do use carbon fiber for its energy storing then, because you can load it like a spring and then put some energy in it, and it's going to store that energy and return it to you.
Okay. So I've seen like the real, I guess there are some that are carbon fiber that they do make like a spring. And are those, how does the price of these vary? Like, I'm guessing if it's made out of carbon fiber, that's the high end stuff, and like somebody would only get something like that if it was if they wanted to do some kind of like athletic thing or something like that.
Are you talking about feet, or are you talking about bracing?
The one I've seen with the feet is like it's almost like a leaf spring design or something like that.
Sure.
They call it the cheetah or something like that.
Yeah, the running legs insurances do cover, actually. But
Really?
We have to justify everything we do. Everything we put on a patient needs to be justified to insurance and justifiable, because they're not cheap. So if you're talking about prosthetic feet, most of them actually have some carbon fiber element to them.
Yeah.
Now for the braces, if someone's got a simple drop foot, maybe from a stroke or a traumatic brain injury, or from a botched knee surgery or botched spinal surgery, and they come out of surgery and they can't lift their foot up, so now they drag it.
Yeah.
Or every step they take, it slaps on the ground and they just can't pick up their foot because they don't have that neuromuscular signal anymore. Then they've got carbon graphite lightweight braces that go on their feet that pick up their feet for them and give them that normal gait back.
Okay.
And really the prices for those, for braces, comes down to whether it's a custom brace versus an off-the-shelf brace.
Okay. Very cool. So what kind of tools do you guys use in your shop to build all this stuff? Do you guys have CNC equipment? Do you have mostly stuff for doing the molds for the carbon fiber, vacuum pumps, different things like that? Could you talk a little bit about your equipment?
Sure. I mean, we've got pretty much everything a wood shop would have in it, and we don't deal with woods. Big grinders, vacuum pumps for doing laminations. We use all your drills and saws, and we've got carvers that you can input a model into with all the measurements, design it on a computer, throw a foam block in there, and it cuts out somebody's torso for you, so you've got the exact torso shape. And then we can design stuff off of that.
What's a car? Is it a CNC or what is it?
Yeah, it's a big old drill bit CNC machine that carves out a giant foam blank.
So it can move in the vertical, horizontal, and okay, very neat.
It's the technology is pretty cool. 3D printers, like I said, will be part of the future, but right now we're having issues with materials, I guess you could say, and it being a viable material.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, robot legs, sound waves is gonna replace his limbs for robot legs, so he needs a hookup.
Well, Well, if it ever comes to that, I'll take care of you.
Yeah. So you're probably you have to work with your hands all the time. I'm guessing.
Yes. Everything we do is at least custom fit to somebody. So if that means trimming or cutting or grinding or buffing or something, I mean drilling, adding straps or whatever we need to secure it to somebody, we've got to do that. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you take the molds of? Okay. So how are you getting the copy of the person's limb? How do you do that process? How does that work?
Okay. So the patient's going to come in. If they're missing a leg, we cast their residual leg, what they've got left, their stump, I guess you can say. That's probably not the most PC word, but that's what it is. So we cast their residual leg, and we take lots of measurements. Circumferential measurements, medial, lateral, anterior, posterior, widths. We mark bony landmarks, and everything is done with like an indelible pencil. So once that cast is taken,
how are you doing the cast?
we wrap it with either a plaster of Paris or a fiberglass casting wrap. Something that you would, if you were to break your arm, you go to the doctor. Something that they would put on your arm.
Okay.
As a casting material.
So do you like soak it in a resin and you
soak it in water, and the plaster or the fiberglass resin that's on the wrap will I guess start and it'll set up and set off after it dries up.
So you just have to soak it in water.
Yeah, just soak it in water for 10 seconds and get it really wet, and then wrap it on the patient's limb correctly, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if someone's coming in and they just need a brace made, whether that's an elbow brace, a knee brace, a back brace, or a leg brace, we wrap their entire limb, take the cast off, staple it back together, seal it back up, and then we pour all of our casts up with plaster of Paris. And we'll mix some vermiculite in there as well. Vermiculite is something used for gardening, and it holds water. It's also a lot lighter weight than plaster of Paris, so you're not lifting up a 400-pound torso of plaster. You're more or less maybe it cuts the weight in half.
Okay, so the vermiculite, it's helping you absorb some water.
It makes it lighter weight, and it holds water a little better, so you get more working time with your plaster.
Okay. So we've talked about that in the past. We were talking about how people have a problem with the skin interaction with a lot of these prosthetics where they get sweaty, and then it kind of moves around on them. So that's a big problem in the prosthetics.
Yep.
Is it only for certain areas, I guess, more for like the legs than the hands and arms and stuff?
I mean, whenever you put somebody in a prosthetic limb, they're going to sweat. It doesn't breathe well. Most times we roll on a gel liner, and that gel liner acts more as an interface. It acts kind of as a cushion. And then once they get that gel liner on, they put on their prosthesis. And gel does not breathe. So if someone's got sweating issues, they're going to sweat inside gel.
Yeah. So then that causes the limb to shift around on you and all kinds of stuff like that.
It can. We use that gel. It acts as, it gives you that coefficient of friction, and then we can attach the liner to the prosthesis, or we can use suction, or we can actually use a vacuum pump that's built into either the foot, a mechanical pump, or a powered pump that sucks all of the air out and gives you a negative pressure, and that can be how the limb stays on.
Okay.
There are quite a few different ways that we can keep limbs on now.
Okay, Rondon asks, what about wool? What about a wool sock?
Sure, but you can pull wool down quite easy. We don't really want anything against the skin besides the gel, because we're really looking at that coefficient of friction to keep that gel attached to the skin. Now,
wool would probably really agitate the skin, wouldn't it?
I honestly, we don't normally put stuff in between unless we're using like a silver sock, and we can do a really thin silver fibered sock in between the gel and the skin.
Silver. Oh, okay.
And that
because it's antimicrobial.
Antimicrobial, correct. And that antimicrobial will kind of help with the sweating and especially with the smell.
Yeah. Because if you think you're putting on your shoe and those smell, those probably could get even worse.
Yeah, the liners need to be washed every day if people are using them for their legs.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of different things. So, what about specialty components like titanium, things like that? Are you guys using mostly titanium for? Or do people? I've seen some people have what you call the socket, and then they have a titanium thing that connects to their bone, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah. So they are doing what we call osseointegration, and they've been doing it in Europe for quite some time. But getting it passed through the FDA here, I guess, is very hard. And I think they just started getting approval to do some osseointegration, where they actually attach a titanium pin to the bone itself. Now the problem with that is you've got a titanium pin sticking out through the skin. Yeah. And you don't have a complete seal between the skin itself and inside of you.
Yeah.
And the problem is
you
people
can lead
sometimes
to
infection, yeah. And if you have an infection that gets right into your bone, then they go in for another amputation.
Okay.
But the cool thing is titanium has been used in dental uses a lot. And the reason titanium is used is because the structure of titanium, when you break it down...
similar to our bone?
Well, the bone will fuse into the structure of titanium.
Oh, no
so
way.
It really does osseo-integrate.
It'll grow into the structure of the
osseo
titanium?
being bone and osseo-integrate, the bone actually grows into the titanium.
Wow. So you're saying somebody could become like Wolverine?
I'm not saying that, but they've been using it successfully in the jaw to implant teeth, and in Europe they've been doing it successfully in femurs or into the the tibia, to really implant a titanium rod that helps you keep your socket on. Now the downside is you've always got a titanium rod sticking out of your limb.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can imagine.
Claws?
Well, I was saying certain bedroom activities when you've got a titanium rod sticking out of your leg. I don't know how that works well. So.
Yeah, you got to be a lot more careful in that regard.
Poking holes in your mattress and such.
Oh man, that's hilarious. So, tell me a little bit. Tell everybody a little bit more about yourself. You're a jack of all trades. You do a little bit of all kinds of stuff, don't you?
Sure, I dibble dabble in everything I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Chainsawing used to do some tree work and stuff when you were younger.
Sure, I mean anything to pay my way through school I did, whether it was cutting down trees or moving or electrical work on the side. Anything, I mean.
I'm running into a bunch of learning on the chainsawing right now. I skipped a chain and had to replace my chain recently, and used some older gas and had to only use mix new gases and stuff like that. I'm a baby when it comes to using the chainsaw, but I never owned one for myself. I finally own one for myself, and now I really I got to take care of it. So. In the past I used my dad's chainsaw. Not that I didn't take care of his, but it's like, you want to take care of your stuff more,
Correct. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So you actually helped me at my house cut down a tree at my place. And I didn't know what the hell to do. And AJ's like, let's set up a pulley to go around this tree, and then we'll attach it to your car, and then I'll back cut it and do all this stuff. So
yeah, working on snap cuts so they don't roll onto your house.
Yeah.
It's not like your front yard is very big.
Yeah.
That tree was the size of your house.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, those are some really great skills. So yeah, you guys, you were hunting and fishing and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yep, grew up hunting, fishing, farming. Grandparents had a 200-acre farm, beef farm. So tossing hay bales and shoveling corn and
Now-
everything you can think of.
Now, some people like that kind of life, I guess, when they grow older and they have a fondness for it. But did they wear you out on that kind of stuff when you were young, or do you still hold kind of a fondness for that kind of stuff?
I mean, you learn the value of hard work. So I don't say I miss it, but I don't say that I want to go back to it. I like what I do. I really get to help people out versus throwing hay bales and stacking them up in the hay mow. It's just
Yeah.
I'm not saying I miss it.
Gives you an appreciation for what you do now. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would help some of my. I have a really bad allergy to hay, so I did help one of my buddies do stack hay one time, and I totally was down for the count for a little while. That's out of all the things I have. I don't have very many allergies, but I do have a pretty bad allergy to hay for some reason. That's the only one that I'm really affected by. Otherwise, I don't have really bad allergies. So yeah. So you're also a fan of the whiskey?
Oh yeah, I collect bourbons. I have a pretty decent collection, maybe close to 60 or 65 bottles.
Do you grab some of that old Pappy Van Winkle or whatever when it came into town?
No, but I've had quite a few different Pappies.
Mm-hmm.
I do have fun taste testing bourbons, or whiskeys in general, scotches. I like them all.
So this is a kind of a test for maybe we might do a future show called Bacon, Bourbon, and Bullets, where we talk about bourbon and different bacons and ammo.
Yeah, maybe not just ammo. Any type of weaponry, survival stuff.
Yeah.
We'll do some bourbon taste testing, kind of do a review, maybe a specialty bacon. I know that up north they do bacon grams or the different.
I got one of those. Yeah, I got one of those
bacon boxes
from now ex-girlfriend. But she sent me a bacon gram, and it was like the nicest thing for a dude to ever get. So ladies out there, peachy crim. Send your guy a bacon gram if you really want to win his heart.
You get like 5 or 6 different bacons in that thing.
Oh my god, yeah,
they're all legit.
Smoked bacon and apple flavored smoked bacons and different kinds of flavors of bacon.
And we're not talking about that thin Oscar Mayer bullshit you get from the grocery store. We're talking like thick cut country style.
Yeah. Peachy's eating bacon right now. Awesome. Yeah.
Well, we're drinking bourbon right now, so
cheers. Oh yeah, bacon's delicious. We always get on the topic usually of food in this show because right around this time you get a little hungry, but everybody's making me hungry with their talks of Saturday morning pancakes and things like that. So
nothing wrong with some pancakes.
Yeah, some flapjacks. So
did you want to talk about thermoplastics?
Yeah, you got this thing that you brought in right here. If you want to show that on the video here.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see this. So we did thermoplastics, and on the back, this is for a young kid. We got Batman all over this, and this ink that we put on this comes on a paper, and we get this plastic hot, about 395 degrees in an oven. And this looks like about 5-30 seconds co-poly, and it's just a big old sheet of plastic. And once we get it nice and hot, we can put on a color transfer, and we've got all sorts of color transfers. I mean, really, the sky is the limit. And we rub that on and pull it off, and the color actually gets pulled into the cellular structure of the plastic and stays there. So
wow.
We also have this kid is pretty hefty kid, so we did carbon fiber reinforcements in here. That's what these are right here. This is a polycarcy is what it's called, and it's a polycarbon reinforcement that's put in here, and then we riveted those in.
Yeah, if that's hard to see for you guys, it's right at the ankle region of the prosthetic. Or this isn't considered a prosthetic.
It's called orthosis. Yeah,
it's considered a brace.
Yep.
Okay.
And let me see. Maybe you can see it on the inside a little better. There we go. So it's got a polygraphite half moon shape in there that goes around the ankle.
Okay, yeah.
And
that
gives
comes
him a
down
little more
bit.
structure because he's a big kid and he tears these things up.
Okay.
So we use foams too to give some padding to the braces, and these are all custom made off of the patient's limb. So we'd cast this limb, we'd pour that cast up with plaster Paris, peel that cast off, and we've got an exact copy of that limb. And off of that limb, we vacuum form the foam and we vacuum form the plastic. Add the reinforcements we need in the areas we need. Put buildups around the bones and push where we can on some soft tissue. And we've got a brace that will stabilize this kid's leg and let him walk.
Very cool.
Without this brace, he can't walk.
Very cool. So you cast his leg in the plaster Paris or something like that first, or
yeah, we use
and
fiberglass mainly
Okay.
for orthotics.
okay, fiberglass, and then you would pour some kind of solid form to thermoform that, or you just took all your measurements and
We pour it
just,
we pour it up with plaster Paris and
Okay.
vermiculite, and then when we take the cast off,
Gotcha.
we've got the model of plaster
Yep.
that is the exact shape of his leg.
Gotcha. And then you just put that in your you have a specific thermoforming machine, I guess.
No, we just use a vacuum pump and we drape mold plastic over it.
Oh,
And it sucks.
over the copy.
Correct, and it sucks all
Yeah.
the air out. But we do a lot of work to that plaster model before we can pull it. We've got to build up on all the bones. We've got to take down the measurements.
Because you don't want it to be
Smooth it all
exact, right? You
Well,
want it to be a little bit of room in there. But
Certain
not very
areas we
much.
do, yeah. Certain areas we want there to be a little bit of extra room because people can't have all that pressure, especially over a bone like around the ankle.
Yeah.
I mean, if that bone is too tight, you're going to cause a big old sore on their ankle.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah.
and then everything we do with orthotics and prosthetics is all based on angles
Yeah.
and what you're trying to accomplish.
The biomechanics of
Biomechanics of the human gait.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no kidding. So everything is based on everything. If one thing is off on your lower part of your body, then it throws everything off, right?
Correct.
So if things aren't even, then your spine gets out of alignment, everything from there up.
Yep. I mean, if you, it's like a foundation on a home.
Right. Bad foundation, then everything else gets affected on all through the rest of the body.
I think this kid is more cerebral palsy. He walks kind of with a bent knee gait, and the angles that we've got this brace set at will straighten his legs out.
Okay.
So he's not walking with such a bent knee gait.
Okay.
And everything's got to do with just angles. I mean, everything has got to do with angles.
Yeah.
So if someone's knee goes into a hyperextension moment, bends backwards, then we've got to change the angle of the foot and ankle, and then we can kind of stop that knee from going backwards on someone.
Okay. Cool. Hey, Senator Avalone, thanks for joining this morning. We're talking about prosthetics and orthotics. I have my buddy AJ on the show this morning, and we are talking about his profession and getting to learn a little bit about, how he does what he does, and sharing some of that with you guys. So
Tasting some local whiskey.
yeah, and taste some local whiskey. Oh, great. Where is that from? The distillery around here?
Yep.
There's one in Madison now, huh?
Yeah.
How about that? That's awesome. So, Black Patch Distilling Company. It's good stuff. I like it. There's another one that started up around here, Alabama. We're in Alabama, and it's been dry in different areas for a long time, but a lot of that has changed, and so people are coming up with little distilleries and lots of microbreweries and all kinds of stuff all over the place now. So yeah, it's changing a lot. Yeah, so it's great. Yeah. You guys anybody else out there that got distilleries around their place? That's awesome. Yeah, swoop. No, if anybody comes to come hang out, we're definitely, if you don't work, you're probably not going to eat. So, but that's probably the big thing is that what I'm doing on my land and what I'm going to be doing is trying to grow a lot of the food, my own food, and then also try to sell some food locally and stuff. And so yeah, but I plan on opening it up for people that want to come and stay to do woofing, which is the worldwide organic farming gig. And so yeah, man, possibly if you're willing to work in the future and do some farming and stuff, might have a bed for you. Yeah. So Sunravel Me, you like your whiskeys too, or your distilleries anyway. So that's great. Right on, man. Right on. We can play some awesome music too. I loved your video, Swoop, the other day that you put out for going on your little tour and stuff like that. So I think that's cool, man. So you got some cool tunes. So yeah, man. What do you got? Are you guys stay pretty busy, or do you is it kind of some downtime sometimes, or?
I wish we had more downtime right now. We've stayed very busy.
Because people have to come in, they have to swap out their stuff too. Some stuff breaks down.
Sure,
things like that.
We do a lot of kids. We do a lot of adults too. Don't get me wrong, but we do a lot of kids, and kids will really outgrow their braces within 6 to 8 months. So
yeah.
We see them every 6 to 8 months for new stuff, and a lot of times we got to up the material strength because they're eating, they're growing, they're gaining weight.
Yeah,
and we just got to keep up with them. For adults, maybe once every couple years we'll see an adult for a new brace, and then as their limb changes, if they're amputee, maybe every year or so we do a new socket, or every couple years, depending on where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, we stay very busy.
Yeah. So what if something breaks down on one of your prosthetics and orthotics? Like what's the procedure, or how do you guys deal with that kind of stuff? People just come right in, and do you have a warranty on your products and stuff like that, or the stuff that you make? Or
I mean, we're going to warranty the product as long as it's not a catastrophic failure. If it's a catastrophic failure, we'll have to, cast for a new one or start the process for a new one. And then insurance does a pretty good job covering that, as long as it wasn't, one of our own structural issues. If it was a structural issue, we take care of it.
Okay. Cool.
But they do get their wear and tear just like anything, and you've got to, keep them up to date and on just like you would like a car for an oil change or something. So,
yeah. They require their maintenance and everything like that.
Correct.
Gotcha. So have you caught any fish lately?
Yeah, man. Nice. I got a nice bass pond out back, and I think the biggest one I caught out of there is 6.5, 7-pounder. So
nice.
Quite a few large bass back there.
So they stock that and everything?
I don't know. It's all naturally stocked. We don't stock the bass at all.
Naturally stocked with bass?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, how about that?
Maybe it was stocked 40, 50 years ago, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Ton of bass, good sized crappie in there.
Okay. Very cool.
Now we do stock grass carp, and the grass carp keep the algae bloom down, but that's the only fish we stock.
Okay. Yeah, so you're originally from Minnesota, right?
Correct.
So you guys were just like spoiled with lakes everywhere, huh?
Yeah. I grew up fishing. If the fishing wasn't good on one lake, you moved a mile down the road to the next,
Yeah, so you did you grow up doing all like the water sports and all that kind of stuff too?
Yep. I can water ski and wakeboard, snow ski. I'm not very good at snowboarding, but
yeah,
grow up on cross countries or downhills, and you're doing good.
Yeah. So do they have a lot? Did you guys mainly stay in Minnesota to do all that, or did you try to go into the mountains or something like that?
We don't really have mountains. We got some big hills, but that's more in northern Minnesota.
Yeah.
Southern Minnesota, is more of a plains area, and northern Wisconsin's got some big hills too. So we got quite a good skiing area in the northern parts of the state.
Yeah. I know we got a bunch of northerners in the audience. Is anybody else a big skier, snowboarder out there? If so, I'd love to go with you guys sometime. I'm real big into that as well. We used to do a yearly trip up to a little place called Snowshoe, West Virginia, and we still haven't got you up there, but it's probably going to be maybe another couple of years until I can maybe get back up that way, or I'll just kind of become a ski bum and go work at the ski resorts or something. Live out of my trailer for one winter or something like that. Swoop surfs the sand. Oh, okay. No snowboarding for him. Not so much snowboarding on Rondon's part, huh? Hey man, well, we do have one little slope, but yeah, we don't really have anywhere to go around here. And so there is one, it's a little hill. They make snow, and you go up the hill and you can kind of go back down the hill. Okay, so unravel me, you're out coming to Colorado for skiing. Oh yeah, for sure. I went to Keystone one time. I really love that place. I think there's a Copper Mountain stuff around there too, and that's pretty chill. Little ski area as well.
Chattanooga's got hills.
They do, yeah.
Gatlinburg's got hills.
And we got Gatlinburg, so we're not too far away from some stuff. So yeah, I remember going to Keystone, and I brought a friend of mine for the first time to go snowboarding, and he learned on one of the big mountains there. And I remember just trying to go down the green slopes there, and they just last forever down in up in the Rockies and all that. So you get really whooped out. And I was a smoker at the time, so I was huffing air as much as I could. I couldn't get enough air at the time. So yeah, you get to work with some cool guys. You're kind of like you're the doctor, so you have to kind of approve of everybody's work and all that kind of stuff too.
I'm not a doctor. It's a master's degree, but when you say approve, I guess we do have assistants that help us out. We do have techs that help us build stuff. So, kind of. I have to see everything before it goes on the patient, fit it to the patient, and make the modifications that are necessary.
Okay. Yeah, so you're the quality control. That's kind of you're the ultimate have to you kind of leave it up to the people that are working with you, but you're in there as well, right? You're in there working.
I'm in there mostly hands-on with patients.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, obviously, everything that goes out the door has got my name on it because I'm the person that casted for it and fit it.
Okay.
And then yes, I guess you could say I'm the last step, but approving-wise, and I wouldn't say approving is a good term for it, but...
Yeah. Okay. So Unravel Me said that they got really good deals at Loveland. So Unravel Me, I might be hitting you up at some point in the future if I can get my way out that way. It would be cool. So yeah, man. So are you on social media or anything like that? Are you doing any of that kind of stuff, or do you kind of stay off of that kind of stuff? Can people find you somewhere or anything like that?
I'm not into.
Yeah.
I'm not into social media.
Maybe when we get our podcast going, then.
The only social media stuff I do is posting inappropriate memes on private pages.
Yeah.
And to answer Rondon, yes, we do make prosthetic ski legs that actually do clip the feet, our specialized feet that actually have clip-ins to the skis themselves. So yes.
Yeah.
And they do make prosthetic knees for X-Game amputees that have motocross Fox shocks built into the knees themselves for snowmobile racers, motocross riders, downhill skiers, and snowboarders.
Yeah.
So they're not good walking knees, but they're fantastic riding knees.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's some cool components.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, one of our classmates in my mechanical engineering class, she was a prosthetic. She lost a leg or her bottom part of her leg in a motorcycle accident, and she's actually like one of the in the what is it the Olympics for disabled people.
Paragames.
The Paralympics.
Yeah, don't call it Special Olympics. I'll kick your ass.
Yeah, I didn't say the Paralympics, but she actually competes in the Paralympics, and she's a really great snowboarder in the Paralympics, and so yeah, that's they can make really awesome stuff now.
Yeah, I know.
Really
I know exactly who
stuff.
you're talking about. I think she was trying to get her hands on one of those moto knees so she could snowboard with it.
Yeah, because it would probably give her a little bit more action on being able to move around, and
It's a lot more stable. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So yeah, we do prosthetics for everything. If you wanted one for swimming, we could do one for swimming. If you wanted one for any sport, they've got something pretty much for every sport too.
For swimming, so would you make like a fin or something like that?
Yeah, they've got all sorts of fun stuff, man.
But wouldn't that kind of give you like maybe more of an advantage over somebody if you had like a fin?
There's zero proof that any prosthetic limb or carbon fiber spring gives any advantage.
Yeah.
And if you ever try walking in these prosthetic feet, because we make stuff we call bent knee orthosis, that is a bent knee, and we attach a pylon and a carbon graphite or a prosthetic foot to it, and try walking around in one of those for a while. It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So,
takes more energy than maybe having something else.
Yeah, it does. Your energy expenditure goes up crazy.
Yeah.
And the higher you go, the more energy expenditure.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I just want to say shout out to Breeze. Thanks for joining this morning. I saw you join. So thank you for being here. So yeah, man. So we went over a lot of different stuff. Yeah, is there anything else that maybe you'd like to share with the audience about what you do, or is any other kind of maybe closing remarks or anything like that? I got another guest for you guys today. Is a fellow steemian that I'll bring on in the second hour, and anybody that has maybe some questions that you guys want to give to AJ while he's here about prosthetics or orthotics or something like that. Yeah. I guess I plan on continuing the video, and we're gonna finish the podcast here. But maybe when we move on to my tech trail, I don't know, Rondon. What do you think, man? You think we should continue the video after we move on from AJ, or what do you think? I don't know. Oh, okay. You're talking about him finishing this area. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you yeah, you got some work. He's got some work to do. So yeah, man. Yeah. Appreciate you being on the show.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, any questions on prosthetics, orthotics? Anything you guys want to know? Any questions at all on that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So, once again, man, I really appreciate you being on the show and coming to hang out with me today. And
is phantom limb a real thing? Yes, it actually is a real thing. People who lose their limb will have a feeling of that limb still, whether that is an itch, a crushing feeling if it was an accident that their limb was crushed in, burning, pins and needles, and really, it is a real thing that we work with. People get on medication to try to help those nerves, because that's what it is. It's a nerve pain. So they'll get on Neurontin to try to stop that phantom limb pain. And it's interesting because those nerves will start growing back, and you'll think your foot itches, but your foot's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Or you'll feel like there's pins and needles or a crushing sensation in your foot, and your foot is gone.
Oh, wild.
So,
Like
it's
really, that's weird. You can never scratch the itch.
you can't scratch the itch.
Yeah. Yeah, so Rondon asks, can you remotely hack a prosthetic arm and make somebody slap themselves?
Well, I don't know about slapping themselves because that would require, I guess, a powered elbow to bend and hit themselves.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, not there yet, but no, we do program them via Bluetooth. So I guess technically, if you wanted to try to program something, you could make it do something.
No, man, that's so weird. That's why I think we should try to remain as human as possible. We're kind of coming up to that age where, we have some of this technology to modify ourselves. But yeah, if you can think a Tesla can be hacked, can you hack a prosthetic?
Yeah,
so.
The nerve issues do weird things. So
yeah,
if it gets itchy, yes, it may be a nerve issue.
Yeah. Phantom chin.
Yeah. Bluetooth's easy to hack. I've got no idea if Bluetooths are easy to hack.
Yeah.
That's above my pay grade.
Rondon says yes, so Rondon's our hacker, so but he's more into the computer stuff, so so yeah, thank you for joining me on the show, brother. And yeah, cheers.
Oh, hold on.
I'm out of whiskey.
We can fix that.
All right. So you're welcome to hang around for the next part of the show, and hang around with our next guest and chill out, or if you got something to do, kick out, whatever you want to do, man.
I got you.
All right.
Cheers.
So cheers, brother.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you again for being on, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with the audience what you do and everything like that. So so it's a real pleasure, brother. And I really appreciate you. So,
all right, let me get out of here.
All right, man. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for hanging out. My next guest is a fellow steemian. Some of the times I like to, on my shows I have a lot of friends that do some interesting stuff. So I like to, kind of showcase some of the stuff that they do. And this next guest, I caught one of his posts this week and sent him a message and to see if he might want to come on the show. And we talked this week about him coming on. So my next guest is My Technology Trail, and we talked a little bit before the show. And he does some stuff with solar and Raspberry Pi, and doing some different coding and things like that. So here's his profile on Steemit, and we're gonna get to know My Technology Trail and get to talk to him for a little bit. So let me pull him on air with me, and we'll have a little talk. Hey, My Tech Trail, how's it going, sir?
Doing good this afternoon. Doing good.
All right, really great. Yeah, so we talked a little bit before the show, but maybe if you want to introduce yourself and what you're about and what all stuff that you like to work on and share here, and maybe how you got involved with Steemit and cryptocurrencies.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm an old guy compared to most of you young fellows out there. I've been doing computer type stuff for about 40 years.
Okay.
So I've seen the progression of the computer technology through a great amount of changes. Yet I still maintain today we would call me a maker.
Yeah.
I like doing things with my hands. I like tinkering with stuff.
Yeah.
I've always had that thing, and because I was into computers for my living, and in 2012 the Raspberry Pi Foundation released this little credit card sized board called the Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm.
They did it primarily for they wanted to make 10,000 of them to enable them to give them away to students joining their computer science, because they wanted a better, cheaper tool for the kids to be able to learn programming on.
Yeah.
Originally, it was going to be a Python-only device, but they discovered that it was easier to turn it into a small Linux computer.
Yeah. I've used them myself. I love them.
They're amazing, and the reason they've taken off, and there's 13 million of them out there now in the last 8 years that they're 7 years that they've been making them, is they did it for an educational bent, but the hobbyist community came along and said, this is awesome. Yeah. It's small, it's cheap, it's low power. They have a connector on there. Can you grab that image from the post where I show the project with raspi02?
Absolutely.
And post it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I tried to do blogging back in 2012. I had been in a technical job where I would help people maintain their computers.
Okay.
And I just pushed myself too hard, and I could see the wall coming.
Yeah.
One of my customers offered me a job, and I said, oh, okay, well, yes. And so I went from working 100 and some hours a week to maybe as a 40-hour-a-week job. And so I had a little more me time that I could focus on my hobby, which was things like the Raspberry Pi, rather than playing with computers at home to learn for work.
Okay.
So I thought I'd try blogging.
Yeah.
Did a few posts and whatnot, but I'm not a great writer.
Yeah, hey, I totally understand that. Yeah. Yeah, when you kind of get into the technical space, writing is kind of secondary, but yeah, I understand that completely.
So I didn't do a lot of it. I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos to do with off-grid and solar technology and whatnot. And one of the guys one day said, hey, there's this thing called Steam, where you can actually possibly earn a little money to do some blogging and whatnot. So I signed up and kind of lurked around for about 3 or 4 months. And then I got hooked up with a community on Steam, the platforms group, and got a bit of encouragement from one of the guys over there and decided that I would try doing some Steam stuff, and did a few posts, took some of my real simple attempts at YouTube and posted them on DTube. And then at the time, I was living back in Calgary in Western Canada and had a couple small solar panels in the backyard that my brother had given me. Company he'd worked for went under, and he managed to acquire a bunch of 80-watt solar panels and a bunch of used AGM batteries kind of deal. So he gave me a couple of each, and I started playing with solar. So if you look at some of my earlier posts, you'll see that solar setup I had at the time. Now, when packing up the house to move east here, my wife got a job out here wanting to live a little closer to her family. Lived 30 years with me close to my family out west. I figured I could try the next 30 back east with her.
Yeah.
And so I sold the solar stuff. Might get back into it, but I kept all the Raspberry Pis. And so in that picture that's in the Discord there, that's the second Raspberry Pi I ever bought. I have 11 of them. Some people think I'm kind of nuts.
No.
But hey, I have a weakness for buying small technology type things to play with. Yeah. And so now that I'm settled in the new house here, I'm getting back into setting them up. So what you see there, the little green piece, is the actual computer, and it's just slightly larger than a credit card.
Yep.
Now, about halfway down the picture, you'll see a blue wire coming in from the right side and a white one from the left side with a little black thing on the end.
Yep.
Those are temperature sensors.
Okay.
And what I'm doing with that particular Raspberry Pi is I'm actually able to monitor temperature on these wired sensors. So the blue one is now actually sticking out through a hole in the side of the house, and I can run a little piece of Python code on that computer.
To be able to, I guess it senses a voltage, right? Because it's those thermocouples are putting out like a voltage reading. You still there?
Oops, I was pushing the wrong button.
Uh-oh. Okay.
So, for example, I just, in a terminal session, I ran the program, and it tells me that the temperature outside is now 11.88 Celsius.
Oh, okay.
And the one I had running back in the other house, I would actually log that to a database, and then I could track the voltages. So I had one actually mounted behind the solar panels, because the solar panels output is impacted by the level of sun and the temperature. So if it gets too hot, it will lower the output of the solar panel. So I was tracking what the temperature was. So these little devices, you can't see them very well in that picture unless you blow it up. They look like a little transistor, if anyone knows what that is. It's actually called a one-wire sensor. Now, there's actually 3 wires, ground, 5 volts, and a signal line, but you actually can communicate with that device. It's actually got a communications between the 2 devices, and it's actually able to be, I'd have to look up the specs, but it's like 2.5% accurate or something like this.
Yeah. And
it'll measure temperatures from probably minus 50 to plus 50 degrees C, or minus 50 Fahrenheit to 120 or 30. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but It's quite accurate.
Yeah.
And so my first project is I'm just monitoring temperatures.
Yep.
For some reason, I like to log data.
Yeah.
And so those 3 wired ones, 2 of them will be outside, one at the front of the house, one at the back of the house, one in the basement here where I have my man cave, I call it.
Nice.
Although it's not like most guys' man caves. I don't have a big screen TV or stereo or whatnot. It's where I have my computers and my electronics.
Yeah, you have your little workshop there.
Oh yes, yeah. And there's actually pictures of me putting it together in earlier blog posts. Now, what I'll be doing after I get this one settled and working is I have a wireless version where I can wirelessly communicate with little remote nodes in the house, and then I can start to measure temperatures in various parts of the house. So like in the old house, I had one in the master bedroom.
Yeah.
And I had one in the main floor by the thermostat. And so I could be anywhere theoretically and know what the temperatures were going on around the house. Okay. I mean, it's not super big, but it's sort of the start of a type of home automation.
Okay, so you're going to want to maybe do zone heating, cooling, maybe things like that in the future?
Potentially.
Yeah.
So like as an example, I'm overly security conscious sometimes.
Okay.
So I really don't think much of a lot of the home automation stuff that's out there, because like you were talking about, someone asked the question earlier, well, can you hack a prosthetic limb?
Right.
Yeah, most technology is ultimately hackable to some degree or other.
Yep.
Plus, I'm not real big on having a lot of my data up in the cloud.
Right.
You know, I don't know where it lives. I don't know who's messing with it. With a Raspberry Pi, I have full control. I write the code. Basically, I manage it. It's inside my internal network. Generally, I don't make it accessible to the outside world. Right. As a computer guy, I could definitely enable ways to talk to it from the outside world, but I'm in full control.
Right. I gotcha.
I saw too much stuff going on in the technology industry with stuff just being messed with.
Okay. Yeah. So when you were When you were working in that industry, was it like IT related stuff or just like hardware related, or what kind of stuff were you working on?
Well, I was an IT consultant, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I helped people keep their small business networks working. So
Okay.
most of our customers would have 15 or 20 people kind of deal, and a server or two, depending on what their business did kind of deal. And so the company I worked for had a couple of us, and we were hired guns that would keep their networks running, so they didn't have to have an internal IT.
Okay.
Because when you're small like that, you really don't have quite enough work to hire a guy full time. So we had a number of customers. So one day a week for half a day or a full day, depending on what was needed, I would go to customer A. Another day of the week, I would go to customer B. Another day of the week, I would go to 5 different customers and do small things to keep their computers running. So like in that picture you just posted, you can see that black thing on the right or left hand side there is actually a real live computer rack. That's the kind of rack that you would find in most computer centers, except this one doesn't have sides or front or back on it. It's, believe it or not, it's from about 35 years ago. It had a PDP-11 computer in it. Now, most of you probably wouldn't have never heard of that. Most of you probably never heard of the computer company DEC. I mean, this is back before Apple almost. So there was a mini computer in that rack. I bought the whole thing for a couple $100, stripped the components out of it, and ended up keeping the rack because it's nice for hanging my PCs in it. So right now there's 5 PCs in there.
Man, you got DEFCON 1 going on there.
Well, I don't have all 5 running at any given time. I have 2 that run 24/7.
Okay.
One is the one I'm sitting at with the 2 monitors in front of me, which you would see in one of the last picture, although it's kind of hard to see because the screens are off when I took the picture. But I run a Linux box with 2 screens. I like my 2 screens. I got into using a double monitor thing. I really have to admit I kind of have troubles using a single monitor sometimes.
I know. Once you get used to that double monitor, it's tough to go back.
It is. And so, it's what I do. And the Raspberry Pi is so nice because they're so cheap, at $35 for the computer and another $30 for a couple add-on things like a memory card and a power adapter or something. You can do amazing things. I mean,
absolutely.
I've seen them launched into space.
Yeah.
Remember Baumgartner, I think was his name, the guy that went up and jumped out of a space capsule?
Yeah. That when he went and did the high altitude jump.
Well, there's a group in the UK that launches these weather balloons.
Yeah.
And they hook a Raspberry Pi with cameras and whatnot to it, and then they track it over ham radio.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, we sorry, yeah, in college we had a little group of people that did that. They were called the Space Hardware Club, and they would do that a lot. They would send up those they would send up something to take data and also send or record video and all that kind of stuff, and fall back to Earth at a certain point after the weather balloon bursts or whatever.
That's correct. And well, this particular gentleman does that just as part of his ham radio hobby. But what was really interesting is the Raspberry Pi Foundation has a little mascot, which is a little teddy bear.
Uh-huh.
So he modified the balloon, the payload, and he sent a little teddy bear into space to the same or higher than Baumgartner was, and then the teddy bear jumped off the thing before the balloon popped, and with a little parachute, and floated back down to Earth, and they tracked him and found him.
That's awesome. So do these guys do they maybe collect the photos of what they're taking photos of and share them with their community or something?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Okay.
I believe the one guy has a YouTube channel where he would share photos of whatnot. It's really interesting. Like I said, I used to watch a lot of YouTube. I followed a channel on YouTube, and the gentleman is he's a high school teacher in South Texas.
Yeah.
And he runs a sort of an engineering class.
Right.
They do this ballooning as well. And so they will launch a balloon and they'll do a live YouTube broadcast, and it shows all these high school students and the different things. Like they use Raspberry Pis and other electronics and whatnot. And it's all part of their class where they build the payload and then they launch it into space and then they track it. So the local community has an old ambulance that was converted to it has a ham radio and a bunch of other gear in it that I think the local police department was going to use as what would you call it, a command center or something. They donated it to the school. And so these kids use this to track this balloon and go recover it when it comes down.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I just got started in some ham radio myself. I'm going to be playing around with it. One of my old job was doing a lot of radio work, and so I just started to get interested in it. And one of my coworkers had an old ham radio that he donated to me, so I'm going to start getting into some of that myself. And that is awesome with the school projects. I think that's like so needed now is people learning, these different skills with our new technologies, and it makes, just like you're saying, that these Raspberry Pis are so amazing that they can do so many different things in this little package.
Yeah. Well, the Raspberry Pi Foundation, because they've done so well selling all these Raspberry Pis, being a foundation, they're a not-for-profit organization, and they take like 90% of the money that they might make they don't actually make the Raspberry Pis. They license them to a couple of firms in the UK, which actually discovered it was cheaper to make them at a factory, an old Sony factory in the UK, than it was to make them in China.
Oh, wow.
And so they manufacture them all in the UK now. They did the first 100,000 or so in China, but then almost everything since then is done in the UK, is they pump their money into school programs. Yeah. And whatnot. I mean, Google donated $15 million or something a couple years ago to this UK school system to put Raspberry Pis in schools.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper. There's all kinds of projects where they're putting Raspberry Pis in schools in places like Africa and whatnot.
Right.
People will go out and buy 10 Raspberry Pis, get a bunch of used monitors and keyboards and whatnot, and pack it all up and go down and put together a classroom in Africa somewhere, or some other, less enabled nation than we are. I mean, the breadth of things that can be done with this technology blows me away.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. One of the big things that is important for the crypto community right now is that these Raspberry Pi computers can be set up to be data storage for the IPFS, the interplanetary file sharing. And they can be set up to back up people's videos because, they run off the Linux system, and then or the Debian, I guess is what it is their operating system. And it's easy to pin files and to store them on the little solid state drives that you can put on, or just like, just a little thumb drive, or a little one of those little discs, or mini whatever SD drives. So
yeah, well, I actually had a Raspberry Pi running off of a USB hard drive for a while. With the latest version of the last couple versions of the Raspberry Pi, they did a small hardware change so that you could enable it to boot from a USB device rather than from the SD card in there.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the SD card is limited in size, somewhat limited in speed, but primarily size. And so you're right. Take a USB hard drive, plug it into a Raspberry Pi, and for like under $100, you've got your own IPFS node where you can store your videos. And
exactly, yeah.
I think a lot of people are doing that.
It's going to become a lot more popular. And actually, I was listening to a podcast recently. There's a company that's come out that is they are offering IPFS pinning services to pin your files, and they're going to be charging that. And they're going to be looking for people that have the knowledge on how to set up their own nodes and stuff. So there are going to be opportunities for people that kind of understand this technology right now and be able to set up their own node systems and be able to host files for people.
Yeah. Well, that's with video and audio. That is the largest problem for hosting companies is the cost of the disk space.
Yep.
That's the one significant advantage that I see that YouTube has over anything else. And that's going to be the hardest one for DTube or those other, Vim or
right. Right, but it's the principle in what we're building is a decentralized future is what I'm pushing for personally, and I think a lot of people in the cryptocurrency community are, and it comes to our own responsibilities to build out this network, and basically.
Yeah. Well, I've read a number of articles on Steam about building an IPFS node, and one of these days, when I get a few more Raspberry Pis deployed here, I will probably take one of the newer ones and set up my own IPFS node. One of the steemians that I just started following, I think his handle is Solo Miner.
Yeah,
he does a lot of interesting photography stuff. And he set up his own IPFS node. So often he'll say, if you have troubles downloading this, here's my direct IPFS link. So you would actually be then downloading from his little server wherever he has it.
Yep.
I can't remember whether he said he hosts it at home or whether he has it somewhere else. But you're right. It's the blockchain and decentralization is the coming thing.
Right.
And then the community. I mean, I hang around Steam for the community. I started and just thinking I'd do a little blogging and maybe I'd make a little coin. Didn't make much coin, but here it is 19 months later. And here about 2 weeks ago, I bought 400 Steam for my birthday for myself and turned myself into a minnow, right? I mean,
awesome.
I was member of the...
Happy late birthday.
Thanks. I had just joined the Steam Savvy community here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and one of the posts put out by the gentleman, he calls it the Road to 300 SP.
Okay.
And in the comments, people were talking about it, and I have to laughingly say, in the comment, I said, well, I guess my goal for this year will be maybe it's reaching 100 SP.
Yeah.
And, within about 2 weeks, I had actually reached 100 SP and then bought myself, I couldn't wait the 5 days for the spud. I actually had to power it up just because I wanted to say I was a minnow.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the communities we've got here. And again,
absolutely. And that's my drive for being here as well, is there's so many great people, so many helpful people as well.
Yes. I mean, one of the Steam savvy people that I chat with regularly in their Discord channel, I came up with a little saying. Let's see if I can find it here. Basically, I said, encouragement and engagement enable growth. And I'd said it a number of times and said, well, that's sort of my thought.
Yeah.
And she actually turned it into a nice little image.
Oh, cool.
and the gentleman that runs Steam Savvy is one of the primaries, John G. Olson, does a weekly thing where he tries to does a post and showcases one of the people from the community. He actually did me last week, and so I asked him to put that image in there because it says so much what I consider the communities here doing and enabling for us.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people that are here with that mentality, especially the people that have stuck around through the bear market and everything. That they have that kind of cooperation mentality where they want to see other people grow and to help other people understand what the technology is and to help them grow in this area, and to keep. You're just being positive people that want to help share, and I encourage you to come hang out on in the Meadows Support Project as well, and in this community, and then there's also another community that you'd probably be very interested in is the Inner Blocks that just started, and I'll share those links with you. As well after the show, but man, you're up to some really great stuff.
It's interesting is I'd sort of followed Freedom Point and Freedom to Write off and on for the last year, and then just put them back on my to read list kind of deal, and actually just joined Inner Blocks here in the last couple of days.
Oh, that's great! Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's a lot of people in there that are like-minded on the try to self improvement and trying to help each other out in becoming more self-reliant and things like that. So yeah, that's another big thing that I'm into, which kind of goes around with the solar power, that stuff that you're talking about. So what's do you think that you said you might get back into the solar power eventually in the future? You're pretty much like living totally on the grid right now?
I am. Basically, we bought a nice little house compared to the previous one we had here in southern Ontario, and before we moved, I didn't know whether we'd end up with a little house or a condo or something. And so I figured, well, I won't bring my solar stuff with me because I don't know if I can set it up. Right now I'm looking for a job. I need a little extra money to spend on all this toys, as someone called it a little earlier, hobbies. I like to think of it as learning passions. That's hence my name, My Technology Trail, which was my original blog before I became a steemian. And when I came to Steam, of course, My Technology Trail was too long. And so other than Discord and that other blog, I'm known as My Tech Trail, all run together with no spaces because the longer one wouldn't fit. But
yeah,
basically the blog started out as I was trying to log and show my trail with technology, my growth in technology, my playing with technology. I'd like to get back into solar. I don't know if I would ever, unless I got a really good job kind of deal, have enough to go off the grid living in the city like this.
Okay.
But I enjoy the technology. I enjoy the learning. I actually had a couple Raspberry Pis that were monitoring different parts of the system. I had one that would actually communicate with the solar charge controller, and it would monitor the amount of sunshine coming in, and it would tell me how many watts of power I was making at that particular moment and for that day. I had another one that would tell me the state of my charge of my batteries, so I could monitor that and not run them too low. At the time, I ran all my Raspberry Pi type stuff. I charged my phone and my ebook reader and whatnot all from the solar. It was a fairly small system at the time. I was actually getting ready to make the plunge and replace the two little 80-watt panels with a couple of 300-watt panels. amazingly enough, the prices for most things in the solar market have come down so very much.
Yeah.
At one time it was, $5 or $10 a watt. Now you can buy panels for probably $1 a watt or less. So
Yep.
I could spend $300 and buy a 300-watt panel, and then I would be making over 600 watts an hour kind of deal, and then I would have at that point probably been able to run one of my computers off solar. And so it was just learning and growing with the technology.
Right. I think you may be really interested in a new project that's come out called Freeos.io, and it's building an entire economy based on cryptocurrency and the more private cryptocurrency Dash, and it's going to be a place where people can sell either their services or their products on a completely privatized network. And it's something that you might be interested in, especially for where you're at right now.
Okay, now you say Freeos, FREEOS.io.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to drop the link in here. It's recently I've learned about it through Ernest Hancock, and he does a podcast called Declare Your Independence, and recently he had on a guest that he has been involved in private internet for a long time. He used to be part of the Freenet movement, and he got with some people and created this thing called Freeos, and it's just launched. It is going to be a completely privatized network where people that want to sell their goods or services on the network can set up like a burner email and be able to keep all their transactions private via the Dash cryptocurrency. And it's going to be like Open Bazaar for cryptocurrency. You can sell your services or you can sell products, physical products, and you can do it like a shipping technique where you kind of ship it to another party, and then that gets shipped from there to somewhere else. So you can stay as anonymous as you wish, and it just launched this last week, and so you may be interested in looking into that.
Yes, I think I'll definitely give it a look.
Yeah, so I just posted the podcast that they were talking about all this, and I'm having a bit of a difficulty pulling up the exact Freeos.io website, and so I posted that in the chat there for anybody that is interested in looking into that. I think they have all of the links to the site via that post right there. So.
Okay, well, I'll definitely check it out.
Okay, here it is. Let me grab this link real quick. All right. Let's see. Post this in here. But this is awesome. So you're exactly kind of the kind of dude. I follow the same kind of ethos. I love to tinker, and I love to share my failings even with everybody. I believe that we shouldn't be afraid of failing because it's all part of learning. So I hold the same ethos, I guess, as you. We talked about earlier is that you said it's your trail, so it's your discovery through learning the technology and things.
Correct.
Yeah. So I really appreciate people like yourself that are willing to tinker, man. That's the thing that I'm working on myself, is to try to build workshops and things to help spread the knowledge. And you talked about that a little earlier with the Raspberry Pis. I think how are they going to be able to sell those things in the future if they don't have people that are willing to tinker and mess with the technology and understand it and things like that? And it's very important for moving forward.
Well, it is, and the other thing that I didn't quite get into, because I can often get on my Raspberry Pi soapbox, as my wife likes to say. The real driving reason for them developing it is one of the primary founders was can't remember what he called himself, but he worked at the Cambridge University in the UK, and he noticed from when he graduated the computer science program to when he was reviewing applicants and whatnot, it had gone from 800 to 1,000 people wanting to apply for their 100 positions down to 200 or 300. And most of those ones that were coming in at this period back in 2010 thought Excel was a programming language.
Okay.
And so they wanted to do stuff inexpensively that would enable them to truly get into programming more, because they said, without programmers, you're right, a lot of this stuff isn't going to happen. What they didn't realize is they were creating a whole movement in and of itself.
Yep.
And it's amazing to see where it went. I mean, their story just blows me away that they originally wanted to create an order of 10,000.
Yep.
They actually managed to come up with enough personal money to have 10,000 made in China. Then they hooked up with a distributor in the UK, launched on February 29th, wrong day to do it, kind of 2012.
Yep.
And the distributor's website went down, and they had over 100,000 orders for the product in the first day.
Okay.
Because people had been reading about what they were building, and all of a sudden the maker or hobby community or whatever decided that they wanted to participate, and it just went from there. It took them probably close to a year to actually get caught up on selling Raspberry Pis. So the first one I got was probably fall of 2012 before I was able to find one somebody had in stock for my first Raspberry Pi, and haven't looked back since then. I'm still learning a lot. I'm running my 3D printer off of a little Raspberry Pi and then a program called Octoprint, which was open. It's all open source software, and it allows me to run my 3D printer off of a Wi-Fi network off that Raspberry Pi, and I can send my 3D printing files directly to my 3D printer on my smartphone or my laptop via the wireless, the Wi-Fi. And so it's really cool. I have one for that, and then I have one for there's something called the outer net. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but if you have a KU band satellite dish, then you can pick up a basic or really low bandwidth version of the internet that runs off of a cube satellite network, the small little satellites that people have hobbyists built and companies have been using. And this is an entirely nonprofit thing to try to bring the internet to remote locations in the world. And so I've got that, but I haven't totally been able to completely figure out how to get my satellite aligned and everything like that. But looking forward to getting into that. But you could do so many cool things, with these Raspberry Pi computers now. Well, that's the beauty. I mean, we've discussed about 4 or 5 different applications for a Raspberry Pi. There are thousands of uses. Believe it or not, there's actually a little, probably the size of a kayak or something like that, boat floating out in the ocean somewhere trying to get from Europe to the Americas, and it's run off of a Raspberry Pi, or probably more than one. I haven't really followed the project too closely, but that's the basic, is they're using the Raspberry Pi with communications technology is the primary controller of this.
Right, and so I think that is actually our next. It's our next step in the internet are these connected cube satellites, and one of the big guys that's doing this kind of stuff is Jim Cantrell. He has a company called Vector Launch Systems, and they are sending up. They're going to be sending up little cube satellites, and it's the one of the goals that they have is to run a cryptocurrency called Nexus, and Nexus will be the decentralized cryptocurrency of space, I guess, with these satellites.
Well, I mean, to truly decentralize a network, because, we have to realize that, yes, we can decentralize our servers, our nodes, our whatever, but at some level today, we're still reliant on our current internet providers.
Yeah.
So all some government would have to do is go down the street to the local hub, and using North American as an example here, I believe I did some ISP work a number of years ago. We were a small wholesaler. I think there are 4 major sort of nodes in North America. There might be up many as 6 kind of deal, but if you were to shut down 1 or 2 of those nodes, you could basically wipe out North American internet. I imagine in Europe and overseas, they probably have the same problem. Now, I'm a techie, so I understand all the low-level stuff, is when you and I are communicating, the packets, the actual data that's going between your computer and my computer isn't going directly from my house to your house. It's going from my house to my local ISP to the local hub, which is, I'm going to make a wild-ass guess, it's probably in Toronto or someplace like that in Canada here. Then it'll make a hop to one in the U.S. I don't know where they really are, but I'll say New York or someplace like that. And then they'll make another hop to down further south till it gets closer to you. Yes, the internet became, because as a lot of your friend was saying, is the U.S. military puts tons of funds into it. DARPA, whatever that stands for, they created the internet as a supposedly non-killable communications technology.
Right.
Because the hope is if you take out one node, there are ways around it.
Yep.
And realistically with the internet, it's supposed to work that way.
Yep.
But that's why I say, to a degree, if you take out a couple of major nodes in North America, you could make most of the internet unusable.
Yep.
And, wearing my security tinfoil hat, where I worry about all these security things,
yeah,
I just shudder when I read some of these articles about the U.S. grid, as they call it.
Yeah.
How people are worried about it can be hacked. Well,
it's very fragile.
It is. That big one that took down the eastern United States and worked its way into Canada a bit. I mean, they're so dependent on each other and so dependent on the technology that it makes it extremely hard. I'm disappointed in how long it took them to bring parts of it back up. I mean, I know it's all tied together, but knowing what I know about some of the lower level technology stuff, I'm surprised they weren't able to go to a certain point and make a disconnect between Canada and the US and say, we're only going to work on making the Canadian side come up. We're going to disconnect ourselves from the communications protocol that connects to the US so we can bring up Canada. But I don't think there was anyone that made those kinds of decisions. And so they basically had to wait for everybody else to be ready to bring it all back up. And that's why for a lot of people, it is such a major concern. You take down a couple large nodes in the grid and you wipe out a lot of people.
Yep. So, I mean, that's another reason why I do what I do is I built a small, it's a 7x14 trailer that's all solar powered, EMP hardened, and it's able to connect to a generator set. So if you lose your sun, you can still produce power. And I'm looking to even integrate a wood gasification system into this thing. And with the hopes, I've also put the plans out on Steemit so that anybody could replicate this thing and build their own little microgrid in their area to help only harden the grid, but also be possible to help harden our internet networks. So,
well, and I think that's where this Free the Net, I think I read some articles about it, but never got too deep into it. I think that's where some of these organizations are going, is they're looking at alternate network communication so that we're not fully dependent. Now, also, my brother's a ham radio operator. I've just never sat down and studied to take the exam kind of deal, but he gave me a handheld radio that he wasn't using, and one of these days I'm going to get my ham radio license. The ham infrastructure, I mean, when they had the big, is it Puerto Rico, the island that was hit so hard?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is the first communication to and from the island was ham radio.
Yep.
And it's sort of one of the tenets of the ham radio community is, again, it's a community looking to help other communities. And generally, in the case of most large disasters like of that sort, it's the ham radio operators that are able to communicate with each other because they've spent the time learning how to do this just in case, and they're able to set stuff up rather quickly to enable it. I mean, they even managed to provide communications for the police or emergency services or stuff like that, because for whatever reason, their stuff isn't resilient enough or whatever, or so dependent on other infrastructure that it goes down.
Yeah, there's a great guy on YouTube that I follow that he is an emergency ham radio operator, and he is an off-grid ham radio operator, and he has built little mobile power units that work off solar power that is in case of an emergency. But yeah, they are the last bastion of getting communications going. And they're all about just keeping communications going if everything else goes down.
That's right. Yeah. And they're actually, the reason I'm becoming more interested is they're getting more into the digital capabilities. So I also follow a YouTuber that I follow a number of them that are ham radio people, and they're talking more about using the digital communications. So they actually have potentially infrastructure in place where you could do a certain amount of email over a ham radio. It ain't fast. You know, you're not going to be sending your videos and whatnot, but again, it's a method of communication.
Yeah, exactly. There's when Puerto Rico happened, there was a cell mesh network that popped up off of this one product that allowed people to be able to kind of send out a signal between each other. And so that's how Puerto Rico got we're able to send text messages and things through this mesh network, because everybody in the United States bought this product, and they were able to create a mesh network that connected to the cell towers. So if there was as long as there was somebody that was connected to a cell tower, they could transmit that signal in between each other, and then they could reestablish text message communications again.
Yeah, it's amazing what we can enable. The key is that we need organizations that are willing to look at the lower levels and not just look at the money they're going to make.
Right.
I mean, you're right. Is people wanting to do this mesh technology? I, as a hobbyist, I'm a big proponent of a company out of New York called Adafruit.
Yeah.
They make amazing products, and they actually have their own YouTube channel, and they broadcast a weekly show called Show and Tell, and it's a little half-hour clip Wednesday evenings where people from all over the world and come and show different things that they've made with technology components. Yes, a lot of them do use Adafruit products, but they're a reseller of Raspberry Pi. They make add-on boards for Raspberry Pis and other technologies. And they also have another show they call Ask an Engineer.
Okay.
The company's run by this brilliant young lady called Lemore Freed. Her hacker handle is Lady Ada. So everyone calls her Lady Ada. They don't generally call her Lemore. And she actually started Adafruit out of her college dorm room. Oh. Because she was she actually started out by designing and publishing in the open source world the schematics and know-how on how to make these electronic kits.
Yeah.
And what happened is a lot of people started emailing her and saying, well, I don't really have the time to source all the parts. Could you make a kit for me?
Yeah.
And she started doing that out of her dorm room. And now she has a factory in New York City with, I think, over 100 employees where they manufacture electronic kits for all kinds of stuff, for wearables, for you name it, they do it. But she says, they have a learning system, they call it. It's a page, learn.adafruit.com, and they basically write learn guides on how to build different things.
Yeah.
So as an example, this project that I'm working on for the temperature sensing, I used snippets of code from a Learn article on Adafruit on how to get this sensor communicating in Python. And so they say, and it's all open source.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost anything to use it. They said, we're a learning center with a little store at the end where you can buy all this stuff. And
oh, yeah.
I love their products. I love their ethos of enabling people to do electronics.
Yeah.
I've followed their Ask an Engineer show for years, and the greatest story that she tells is she received an email one time from a mother, and the mother said, my daughter has a question. She says, I want to know if there are any male electronics engineers, because Lady Ada, being female and electronic engineer, a lot of her friends were female, and so she would have some of her friends from the community on the show.
Yeah.
And, the girl had never seen a male electrical engineer on this show before.
That's funny. That's kind of the opposite of the stereotype for that, yeah.
Well, it's the unfortunately, I truly believe it's the opposite of the real world.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful to see, she's always talking about other small businesses in the States and whatnot that are run by women.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, iRobot, everybody's probably heard of iRobot.
Yeah.
I believe that was originally run by a woman, and she's broke off and starting some other venture in the technology field. I mean, there's lots there. People just have to open their eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And it was totally, I don't know, it was totally the opposite for me when I was in engineering school. There was very, women were like unicorns. And so if you spotted one, then that was amazing. But it's I think just like you're saying, it's not actually reflective of the field, but it's awesome that anybody that is wants to learn the technology and get into it is it's great, and it's I think that's everybody should be starting to get themselves familiar with a lot of this stuff to just try to be more self-empowered and just bring that power back to yourself to be more self-reliant and more resilient as a human being.
Oh yeah, and again, the beauty of things like the Raspberry Pi is the cost of entry. A $35 computer. Well, gosh, if you accidentally blow it up or something, for most people in the world, and I realize, places like South Africa and a lot of places like that, and other places don't have a lot of money, but a $35 computer can be had by just about anyone. And those of us that have a little spending money, $35 computer is nothing. I mean, I don't drink coffee, but that's 6 or 7 coffees for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Tech Terrell, thank you so much for coming on. We're coming right up to the end of the show here. Crimson Cloud is up next, and thank you guys for hanging out. It's been great chatting with you, sir. And we'll stay in touch. And thank you for being a guest on my show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for asking and having me. I'm just getting thrilled with all the communities I'm becoming a part of on Steam here. Yeah.
So it's full of a lot of great people, and gonna continue to keep growing, I believe. So let's all keep working together. And thank you again, sir. I will throw you back in the audience here, and I really appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.